guys, welcome back. I wanted to make a video today. I honestly don't really have anything planned, which I guess makes this a vlog. It feels like I just made a vlog, but I guess it was like a while ago, almost 2 months. This lockdown thing has been a little bit more intense than I was originally anticipating, as I think is probably the case for many of us. I hope you guys are all doing okay and are healthy and safe wherever you are and not going totally insane. Not sure that I can say that's true for me. I am healthy, great. I'm just also going a little bit insane. Since I have barely left my apartment since my last vlog, you can probably guess there's not really that much going on in my life. So why am I making another vlog? This is kind of pointless. Okay, so I don't know about you guys, like what you miss the most about normal life. I mean, obviously for me the number one thing is my boyfriend, but kind of going along with that is travel. And you know, the fact that I can't travel is related to the fact that I can't see my boyfriend. So these are kind of intertwined. And I was feeling really burnt out the other day, and I was like, how can I possibly be burnt out? Like, I'm barely doing any work. Hopefully my advisor doesn't see this video. I'm really having trouble like motivating myself to do work. So I'm like, you know, spending most of my time doing things that I normally very much enjoy doing. And so I was like, I don't see how I could possibly be getting burned out from this. I'm usually planning a trip, or like there's in some stage of planning. I usually have that to look forward to, and I love traveling, and I love looking forward to going to new places and meeting new people and eating new foods and like all of that stuff. And I don't have that right now, and I can't have that because I can't even make plans because the future is just so uncertain. Anyway, so really missing traveling, and last night I was looking through some old photos, and I was looking for a specific photo that I don't even remember why, but I came across some of my old travel photos, and it made me think about all the wonderful places I've been. And so I went and found a list of all the countries that I've been to. I've been to 19 different countries, I believe. I think that is correct. And so I guess I will share the countries that I have been with and see if I can find some pictures of my travels there. These are not necessarily in order, they're like kind of in order, but anyway, the first country that I have visited is the United States. Yes, it counts. It is a country and I have visited it. I happen to have been born here and was here for the first 18 years of my life, 19 years? I can't remember if I was 18 or 19 the first time I went international. Anyway, yes, so good old US of A, and I have been to, I don't know off the top of my head the number of states that I've been to, but I think it's probably over half. I have been a lot of places in this country, and I enjoy most of them. I've lived several places in this country, including the East Coast, the West Coast, and the Midwest. So, yeah, so the US. There is one, and I don't have any pictures. That's just my life. Okay, so the second country that I visited is Spain. It's actually not the second country. Like I said, this isn't in order because I went to Spain when I was 19, and I think it was after the Caribbean. Anyway, I've been to Spain. I've actually been to Spain a couple times, and I absolutely love Spain. So I was a Spanish language minor in college. I really enjoyed learning Spanish in high school, and I continued on with it in college. And I did a study abroad program over the summer where I spent a month in Spain, and I stayed with the host family, and I got to really like improve my Spanish and see a lot of the country, and it was beautiful. Unfortunately, that was several years ago, and I never speak Spanish anymore, and so my Spanish is awful now, and it makes me really sad, but it's really hard to maintain. Even I try and like watch TV shows or read books in Spanish, and it just doesn't really work. Anyway, so yeah, I love Spain. Highly recommend. I later went back on a vacation just a couple years ago, and went to some same places, some different places, and I would absolutely love to go back. So that's definitely one of my top places that I visited. I've also been to England. So the first time I went to England was when I was in college. It was actually when I was in Spain. I took a weekend and went to England, and that was because my parents actually lived in England for a year, and they were there, and so I went to go visit them. They lived in Nottingham. My dad is a professor at a small college, and they have a broad program that some professors can take turns leading, where they go to England for a year and with some of the students, and they live there and everything. And my parents really enjoyed it. My mom's super into gardening, so she absolutely loved like all the gardens, although she kind of struggled with the lack of sunlight, which would also be a problem for me if I was there too long over the winter. So I went there that first weekend just to see them for a couple days. I also went back for Christmas and New Year's that year to visit them in Nottingham. And it was all in college, and then I went to a conference in England 2 years ago, and that is where I actually met my boyfriend. And so that like definitely holds a very near and dear place to my heart. That was in Cambridge that we met, and that trip I also went to London as well. So yeah, England is pretty cool. I'm a huge fan of fish and chips. So like people kind of hate on English food, but I really love being able to get fish and chips everywhere. Also, the very first time I ever had Indian food was in England. I was a really picky eater growing up, and it wasn't until later when I was like adult that I was kind of open to trying foods that I maybe would have found off-putting when I was younger. And so I'd never had Indian. I grew up in a small town in Iowa. It wasn't really a common thing to see there. And I was always like, I just never wanted to try it because it kind of looked a little intimidating. And when I was visiting my parents, my dad was like, no, you have to try this. My dad really loves spicy food, and so do I. And he was like, no, it's like really spicy and just delicious. And I can't remember I think it was shrimp vindaloo. I'm trying to remember. Anyway, it was delicious, and I've been hooked on Indian food ever since. It's delicious. So, okay, Costa Rica. Oh, Costa Rica is amazing. I highly recommend it. This was a trip I took much later. Like I said, this list is not in order. This was when I was in my mid-20s. I went to Costa Rica just for a vacation, and it was absolutely beautiful. Just everywhere was amazing. And what I really liked about it is it's a pretty small country, but it has like, there's mountains, there's beaches, there's so many different things to see all this one tiny country. So we actually went and rented a car when we were there, and like just it was easy to drive around, and we were able to see so many different things even in just like a single day, and it was beautiful. It was amazing. I love it. I believe Costa Rica was also the first time, well, the only time that I went parasailing. I went parasailing in Costa Rica, so that was super fun. I love the beach. That's a happy place for me, and so I really enjoyed Costa Rica, and I would definitely love to go back. A couple years after that, I went to Guatemala, and Guatemala is also amazing and beautiful. We also rented a car in Guatemala, and I wouldn't recommend that maybe quite as much. It was a little bit more difficult than in Costa Rica. There was definitely like more of a sense of being of risk, I guess, in Guatemala. There was more visible, armed guards carrying guns, and they were, I think, in the middle of an election at the time, and so there was like all this like political billboards and graffiti all over, and the roads weren't very well marked, and I was not driving, I was navigating. My ex-boyfriend who I was traveling with doesn't speak Spanish, so I was trying to translate the few road signs that we could see and navigate us, and while he's trying to like manage crazy traffic and not great roads. So anyway, in Guatemala, I would not maybe recommend renting a car, but we made it. We were fine. One of my favorite places in Guatemala, we stayed on Lake Atitlan, and it was just beautiful. We stayed at this Airbnb that you literally couldn't get to except on a boat. We had which was very difficult to get to because we were trying to make people understand where we were going, and we didn't really know where we were going, and we were like, But anyway, we eventually rented a boat from someone, and they got us out there. And we had to find a place to park our rental car too. Anyway, it was a whole thing, but it was absolutely gorgeous. One of the most beautiful places I've ever been in my life. Just drop dead amazing. And in a completely different feel was Antigua, Guatemala, which is the old capital of Guatemala. And like, I loved that city. It was also very, one, there's a lot of expats, which was like kind of fun. And two, it reminded me a lot of Spain. It was like this like old Spanish village, like that had just like been in, I don't know. I really liked it. I liked all of Guatemala. I rode a horse in Guatemala. It was terrifying. I will probably never do it again. But that was fun. So really enjoyed Guatemala. Okay, yeah, this is such a weird order. Anyway, Peru. I've also been to Peru. Peru is one of my most recent trips. That was in 2017, I think. Yeah, it was about 3 years ago that I went to Peru. And Peru was great. We did hike. We hiked not the Inca Trail because if you want to hike the Inca Trail, you really have to make like reservations like very far in advance because there's a limited number of permits and everything like that. Anyway, so we did a different track. It was called the Salcantay track. It's actually a little harder than the Inca Trail, so no big deal. I almost died. It was it was difficult. It was very high altitude and like lots of climbing. Yeah, and like 3 different climate zones. It was like 30 degrees one night and then like 80 degrees the next night. It was fun though. It was absolutely amazing. Went to Machu Picchu. Went really, really early, so we were like the first people there, and it wasn't like totally crawling with people. Loved all the food. I really like Central American food. I love plantains, so I'm pretty happy. Avocados, plantains, rice and beans. Think that's great. So yeah, Peru was amazing. We also spent a couple days in Lima, which was like not as fun. I think if you're going to Peru, I would recommend, Cusco over Lima, and I think that's a pretty common recommendation you'll see out there. But we didn't hate Lima. We had a great time there too. It's just more of like, I don't know, kind of a boring big city, I guess, to go to. It was not as much like cool stuff to do. Cusco was amazing. Cusco was gorgeous. And I had some of the best crepes I've ever had in my life in Cusco, which was very random. I actually think I made a video about my trip to Peru, so if you want more details on that, go ahead and check that out. Okay, I've also been to Belize. So, Belize was longer ago. Like I said, this list is not in order. We stopped in Belize on a cruise that I went on, I want to say 2012, and went and toured some Mayan ruins when we were there, which was very cool. I also did that in Guatemala later, so very fun. And Belize was great. I mean, we were only there for a day, so like it was a day trip while we were on our cruise. So I can't say that I like have this intimate familiarity with it or anything. I remember our tour guide would not stop saying that it's unbelievable, and I get that this is like their thing, but I was like, oh my god, stop! Way too many puns. But Belize was great. Yeah, it was really pretty, and the ruins are cool if you're into that kind of thing. Mexico. I have been to Mexico a few times actually. I think the first time I went to Mexico was, I'm pretty sure, was a layover on my way to Costa Rica. And we had an overnight layover in Mexico City. And I just remember that it smelled absolutely terrible. I'm sorry, no offense to Mexico City. I just was not a fan of your air. And it didn't help that I just got off a flight. I was tired, and we had an overnight layover, and we didn't have a hotel, so we were just like bumming around the airport, and we couldn't get into the like security area, so we're like outside, like trying to sleep on the floor. Awful. Sorry. But then on the way back, we had the same thing, but at least that time we were like, okay, we're gonna get a hotel, even though it was only like 6 hours or something. But we're like, we just can't like handle trying to sleep on the floor again. So we stayed in a hotel in Mexico City for like 8 hours or something. But that was my only experience in Mexico City, so cannot really speak to it. But I've also been to Cancun. I went to Cancun about 2 years ago. That was a ton of fun. It was basically spring break of my first year of grad school. I was single. I was 30. I was like, fuck it. I've never like done a fun big spring break trip. I'm gonna do it by myself. And I did. I had a great time. I saw some cool stuff. I also went to the beach. I drank a lot and had a lot of fun. So yeah, Cancun was fun. I actually found out after I got back from Cancun, I found out that my brother who lives in Iowa was in Cancun at the same time as me, and we're not like close. We don't talk a lot. So I had no idea. And then he saw my like pictures on Facebook, and he's like, "Wait a minute, we were there too." Very funny. I'm trying to think if I've been anywhere else in Mexico. So I lived in San Diego for a really long time, and Tijuana is like literally right there. Like sometimes when I was in the Navy, we'd be out, in the nearby waters, and like my cell phone would be like roaming and be like, "Welcome to Mexico," and I'd be like, "I'm not in Mexico, I'm in San Diego." But I've actually never been to Tijuana. It was an area we were not encouraged to go when I was in the military. I was an officer, so it was technically allowed without me having to get permission, but I still had it, like, if I wanted to go, it was like I had to inform my chain of command, and it was just kind of frowned upon. And then after I got out of the Navy, I didn't really have a desire to. So I wouldn't mind going, though. I've heard there's some good food there, but some of the stereotypical appeals of Tijuana I wouldn't be very into. I also have stopped, I've stopped in Mexico on 2 different cruises. One was a West Coast cruise where we stopped in Ensenada. That was fun. I rode an ATV there. I've never done that before. And it was like, there was like a big dirt arena that they took us to, and we got to like ride around and do whatever, but then we also were just like riding down the streets, and I felt like very uncomfortable. There's like cars, and I was like on a little ATV with my helmet, but it was a ton of fun. And then we went on this like trail over the mountains, and there was like this one really steep section we had to go down, and it was like kind of curvy, and our guide was like, oh yeah, like sometimes we have people tip over here, but just be careful and it'll be fine. And I was like, I want to tip over. But I did not. I made it down very safely. It was fun. I would definitely go ATVing again. I was a little nervous about it to begin. I've also, on the Caribbean side, I can't remember where we stopped. It was somewhere in Mexico, though. But again, it was on a cruise. It was just for a day, and I think we went to like one of those kind of standard beach resorts that you can go to on a cruise, where it could really be any beach in the world, and it's like kind of fenced off, and you just get like free drinks and stuff. So, but I'm not hating. That was amazing. I love doing that. Okay, I've also been to Thailand. Thailand, I went to when I was in the Navy. I was a visiting person on another ship, so it wasn't my normal ship, but I was going there because I needed to get qualified on an operating reactor, and our reactor was not operating because we were in the shipyards. So I went on this kind of mini deployment with them, and we stopped in Thailand, in Phuket for a few days. And that was a lot of fun. At the time, I was like not drinking, it was just not a big habit of mine at the time. So I wasn't really into that, but it was funny seeing everyone else get into that. Very awkward going to a strip club with your coworkers, I have discovered. But in the Navy, when you go out in the foreign port, you have to go out in pairs. And so like you can't just go do whatever you want to do. You have to do what another person wants to do. And so you oftentimes end up in a group, and you know the majority wants to go check out some of these places. Also took like a little boat tour, which was cool when we went out, and we went to this like little private beach, went snorkeling and stuff, but I was too scared to go snorkeling because I'm not really a fan of snorkeling, because I don't like that you're like in the water with the fish. It freaks me out. I went snorkeling once in Hawaii when I was in high school and like freaked out, and I've never really wanted to try it again. So I just stayed in the boat, and I could see the fish just fine from the surface. But yeah, and I absolutely love the food in Thailand. I remember I would just like be like buying like the random, you know, meat on a stick on the street, and like some of the people I was with were like, you have no idea what that is, and I was like, I don't care, it's delicious. I think it was chicken, I don't know, but it was very good. And it was amazing to me. I had never really traveled much in Asia before. And it was just so funny to me that it was like clearly this vacation destination for Australians. Like they were everywhere. And New Zealanders a little bit too. And so there was like a lot of things that were catered to them. And I remember, I mentioned before, I really like fish and chips. And so we went to some like English themed or like restaurant that served fish and chips. I was like so excited because I love fish and chips. But yeah, Thailand was a lot of fun. We went to a Mai Tai match. That was fun too. It was a good time. On that same deployment, I also went to Malaysia. Didn't like Malaysia as much. Sorry to anyone that is a Malaysia fan. We were not in Kuala Lumpur. I'm trying to remember the name of the place that we were at. I'm not sure. It escapes me. We were only there for like 2 days. There wasn't a lot to do. I remember like it seemed like half the ship ended up at this like one mall where there was just like, you know, places we could sit that were not on the ship, which is really what you want when you've been on a ship for like a month underway with all this. But yeah, so yeah, I don't know. I don't remember there being very much to do there, and was kind of meh about my trip to Malaysia. Sorry. The Netherlands, going back to the other side of the world and completely out of time order. So the Netherlands I went to on the same trip from 2 years ago, where I went to that conference in England, and since I was already over there, I decided to stay for a week and travel around afterwards. And so I went to the Netherlands. I just went to Amsterdam. It was a lot of fun. I stayed at a hostel there. That trip, I stayed at hostels pretty much the whole trip, and I had never stayed at hostels before, so that was like a new experience for me. But then they ended up being like pretty good. They're varying, like, it was interesting to see all the different types of hostels and like the different ways of doing it. But yeah, I really liked it. I walked around the city center. I had some amazing pancakes. I ate so much. I love to eat. That's one of my favorite things about traveling. It's just all the food. And yes, I went to what do you call them? A coffee shop. And that was a interesting experience. I am not particularly experienced in those sorts of things, and I tried to be careful, but even 1/3 of that brownie was a lot. And I remember I was in this like park in like kind of downtown Amsterdam, and my hostel was like a little bit outside of downtown, and so I had to like take like a tram or something to get back there. And I don't speak Dutch, and my phone was like dying, and so I was like trying to get back to my hostel, and I was like, what is going on? My phone's gonna die. I like don't feel great. I did make it back, but that was less good, but it was a fun experience, and I certainly don't have any regrets. And I went to like the Van Gogh Museum, and just like walking around. It was just such a beautiful city. I really liked Amsterdam. I was only there for like a day or two or something. France. So again, we're now on the same trip. So after I went to Amsterdam, I took the train to Paris. I'd never been to France before, and I was really excited to go. This was in July, so I was planning to be in France for Bastille Day. And yeah, it was supposed to be a fun like capper to my trip. When I say supposed to be, you're like, why? What happened, Nora? Well, funny story. So like I said, I had at the beginning of that trip was in England, and I had met this guy at this conference, and I kind of liked him, and he lived in Switzerland, and he invited me to come visit him in Switzerland when I was doing my trip. And so when I was in Paris, I cut my Paris trip short. I only stayed in Paris for one day. And which was an amazing day. I think I got like 30,000 steps that day. I did like everything I wanted to do in Paris in one day. I walked around the first night I got there, I walked around I can't speak French or pronounce French. It's like the hill with the big cathedral. It's like Secours or something. Anyway, did that. The next day I walked around the Louvre. I didn't go in the Louvre, but I walked around like the gardens and stuff. And I saw the glass pyramid, and I walked to the Champs-Élysées. Like I said, don't judge my French. And had lunch like underneath the Eiffel Tower, and I had like the most stereotypical French lunch. It was like I went to a little bakery and got like a croissant and some macaron. I don't even like macaron, but I was like, oh, get some, and like a little baguette with like ham on it. It was great. Loved that. But I saw the Arc de Triomphe. That was really cool. And I walked to like all of these things, so I got to see like a lot of the city in between. I watched a World Cup game because this was during the World Cup. So I found a little bar that first night I was there and watched the World Cup game, which was really fun. And yeah, just like did everything that I wanted to do in Paris. So that was great. And then I was supposed to take the train to Switzerland then to meet this guy. And so if you're in Paris, it turns out there's like 2 different main train stations, and I went to the wrong one. And I tend to be a pretty I'm an impatient person. I don't really like to wait. So I don't leave myself usually a lot of time, especially for a train, because, you just hop on the train. So once I realized I was in the wrong station, I did not have time to get to the right station, which was really embarrassing to be like, I'm a grown-ass woman and I cannot manage to get to the right train station. And also, frustrating because I was like talking to this guy, right? And I was like worried that he was gonna basically be like, no, don't bother coming now, or like, judge me or not want me there. And we were like, and I was gonna lose out on this potential time with him, and it was like pretty limited. It was only gonna be a few days that I was gonna be there. And I was worried about my ticket. So I had to like stand in line to like try and get my ticket changed the next day, which they were like, oh, your train's already left, so we like can't do it. And I was like, but I've been in this line for like half an hour. And like crying, and like the guy doesn't really speak English very well, and I don't speak French, but he finally like figured it all out for me. I got a new train ticket for the next morning. I had to go back to my hostel where I had like triumphantly left like an hour earlier and been like, I'm cutting my stay short because I'm going to Geneva to meet this guy, and like everyone at the hostel was like, yay. And then I like showed back up with all my bags, and I was like, can I stay here again tonight? And they're like, yeah. I mean, I had paid for it, so it's still my bed, but anyway, but no worries. I did make the train the next morning and it ended up being totally fine, and I'm still dating that guy, so it worked out. Which brings me to the next country on my list, which is Switzerland. So yeah, I went to Switzerland on that same trip. That was unplanned originally. I went to Geneva, got to see the lake there, Lake Geneva, and the big like water plume that they have, which I didn't really know how famous that was, but apparently it's like very famous. And like all the really ridiculously like fancy luxury stores that I was like, I would not shop here because I'm poor, grad student. And got to eat more food because yay, me and food. And had just an absolutely wonderful time with this guy that I met, and also one of our mutual friends had done his PhD in Geneva and was like visiting there at the same time, so got to hang out with them and meet like some of their friends and stuff. So I really enjoyed that, and found Switzerland to be very gorgeous. Also had, I think, the most expensive Frappuccino I've ever had in my life. Obviously, I'm a big Starbucks fan, and so it was Anthony's birthday when I was there, and so he was gonna call his family, and I was like, okay, I don't really want to like be in this video call. Like, I just met this guy like a week ago, right? Like, his family doesn't need to be like, who is that? So I was like, oh, I'll leave you to it to have this video call, and I'll go get some Starbucks. And so I go down to the Starbucks that I had seen when we were walking around before, and I was like, excuse me, how much? Because the conversion, because they use what, francs there? It was like 1-to-1 with the dollar, and so like it wasn't even like, because at first I was like, oh well, it's just because it's in a different currency, and then I was like, oh no, it's just really expensive, but it was delicious, so no regrets. So Jamaica, we are going so out of order. So Jamaica, I went to Jamaica when I was on a cruise when I was in college, so we're talking like 10 years back. It was just a stop on the cruise in the Caribbean, and that was a lot of fun. I was under 21 when I was on this cruise, so being in Jamaica and being able to partake in alcohol was fun. And again, I think we just went to like one of those kind of beach resorts, like that is typical of a, if you've ever been on a cruise, it's typical of a day stop on a cruise. I'm trying to remember. They kind of blur together a little bit. I've been on a couple Caribbean cruises, and they all have multiple stops, and so it's hard to remember exactly which one is which. But I did like Jamaica, and I remember after the night that we stopped in Jamaica, the cruise ship smelled like weed so strongly, and one of the girls that we were with was like a kind of sheltered girl, and she was like, "What's that smell?" And we're all like, "Oh, oh, gotta love it." The Bahamas, again, yep, that was a cruise stop. I want to say the Bahamas, like I said, I get them a little mixed up now, but there was one that we went to this like waterfall that was like over this stone that you could like slide down. That was really fun, random. And one of them that we went to that had like a swim up bar at the beach, which is like cool and novel, especially when you are 19, which I think I was at the time. Another cruise stop was the Grand Cayman Islands, but is that a different? I thought that was like, that's not like a separate country, is it? I should probably look this up. I'm gonna look like an idiot in this video. Anyway, that one was not on the college cruise, that was on a later cruise, and that one was a ton of fun. Rented scooter, like little mopeds, and like went all around the island and just like went to the non like kind of, I don't want to say crappy because they have their own charm, but like not cruise ship oriented or like approved day trip. We just made our own, and it was very awesome. Okay, 16, Australia. So I went to Australia for the first time last Christmas. So not like this most recent one, but 2 Christmases ago, I guess. So that would have been the end of 2018. Yes, I'm good at years. So I went to Sydney and I went to Perth on that trip, and met my whole boyfriend's family, and they were all absolutely lovely and so welcoming and warm, and I really liked Australia. Well, it was December, so I really appreciated that it was summer and it was warm. I do not like being cold, I do not like the snow, I like beaches, I like sun. So I was happy about that. I remember the weather in Perth especially was just absolutely gorgeous. I really loved Perth. It reminded me a lot of San Diego, and if you guys have been watching my channel, you know how much I love San Diego. Oh, and when we were in Perth, we went to Rottnest Island, which is the island that has the quokkas on it, and they're the, like super, super, super cute little mammals that are like always smiling. Oh, that was a great day. It was a great trip. The whole trip was great. It was amazing. Had an absolutely wonderful time. Yes, no regrets about that trip to Australia. It's a long flight though. I will tell you that it's a long flight, and I've now been to Australia 3 different times. So, in the last year and a half, and it would probably have been 4, but coronavirus. Okay, we're almost done here. 17, Germany. So I went to Germany last year. Yeah, would have been last year because my boyfriend moved from Switzerland to Germany for a short contract as a postdoc there, and so I went to visit him in Germany in March of last year, I believe, for my spring break. And that was in Heidelberg, Germany. And it was a cute little town. I really enjoyed it. I was kind of working there. It was like a working holiday, but it's a small town, so it like wasn't like super ton to do, but there was some really good food. I had this amazing schnitzel that was like, we had it like, it's like this really tiny place. It was like really hot because it was like packed with people and like really dark, like big, like wooden like tables. And we were like some like communal table and just like ordering schnitzel, and it was like, oh, so good. It was amazing. And then we went to this other like kind of taverny place one night and got this like big like pork knuckle that they were really known for. That was also amazing, but that was a lot to eat. I was very full after that. But yeah, so I had a lot of fun in Heidelberg. And then on that same trip, we after we worked in Germany for that week, we went to Italy. So Italy is country number 18 for me. We went to Rome, and that was amazing. Walked so much in Rome. Saw like so much cool stuff. You know, we did like the Colosseum and the fountain, and you know the fountain. I mean, Trevi Fountain. Yeah, Trevi Fountain. Oh, we just, I don't know, like everything. I feel like we walked around so much. I was like on a mission to eat as much gelato as possible. I ate so much gelato on our trip to Italy. It was amazing. The food was so good. I mean, I love to eat, and Italy is great for that. So much good food. Had a really excellent time in Rome, and then we went down to Positano, which is on the Amalfi Coast, and that was absolutely beautiful. It was like, you know, that like very Mediterranean feel with like the colorful houses down like the side of these like kind of steep cliffs, and we went like at this beautiful hike that's called like the Hike of the Gods or something, the Path of the Gods. It was great. It was a little early in the year, so like the tourist season there really kind of, I think, kicks off in like late spring, and we were there in the end of March or the first week in April or something. So it was like still kind of cold, and a lot of stuff was still closed because it's like very seasonal. But it was actually kind of nice because it was like very deserted. We had like the place to ourselves, but it was like kind of a bummer in that like, you know, we weren't like going swimming or anything. We were wearing like coats and like winter coats. But yeah, it was very beautiful, and again, amazing food. A little bit more expensive though than Rome was, I felt. And the gelato was not as good as it was in Rome, so. And then that also actually brings me to number 19, which is Vatican City, which is technically its own country. And we did that when we were in Rome. We took a day and went to the Vatican, and that was an experience for sure. There was just so many people, and you know, you're just getting like shuffled through these like hallways with like, you know, jam-packed with people, and just like every wall is just like artwork, like statues, like tapestries, like just like so much, just all crammed into like this one little space. That's actually a huge space, but like, you know what I mean? And yeah, we saw the Sistine Chapel, which I don't want to say I didn't like it, because like obviously it's a great work of art and all, but like it was very busy. Like I don't mean busy like people, I mean it was, but like I mean visually busy. Feel like, you know, you could have picked like one painting. You didn't need to have like 20 all in one spot. Anyway, but it was great, and it was very cool to see. And I really, really loved what was it, St. Paul's the Cathedral? That was just, it's one of those buildings you're just standing inside, you're like, how did people do this? Like just the amount of time and effort and lives that it took to erect that building is very, very astonishing to me. Anyway, so okay, those are the 19 countries that I've been to, maybe 20. Now having all that nostalgia is making me feel a little bit better about the fact that I'm not planning any new countries anytime soon. I have a million more that I would like to go to. I'd also love to revisit like pretty much any of those places because I had a great time. And I hope to continue traveling as much as I can. That's something that I kind of make a priority for myself. I build it into my budget. It is something I do that makes me really enjoy being a part of this world, and it makes me feel more connected to people all across the world. You get to see how people live everywhere, and really the shared humanity that we all have, and the good food that everybody has. Okay, well, hopefully you found this video to be a little bit of a relief from the relentless crappiness that is everything right now. And thanks for letting me distract myself as well. So anyway, hopefully I will be back again with more content for you guys soon. All right, thanks for watching. Bye.